Please tell us about yourself and what you do. Why would be we would be interested in what you say, to put it bluntly.
Okay, well, my name is Yanick Séïde. I live on the east coast of Canada in Nova Scotia. What I do, I'm a transformational life coach. This is the title I'm giving myself. I specialize in working with women who are living through a life transition to get them from
Mhm.
confusion to clarity so they
Mm.
can live a fulfilling and purposeful life that they desire, whether it is through a career change or anything in their life that they want to overcome.
What question or questions do you think we should ask ourselves about transforming workplace culture and leadership?
That's a good question. Because, first of all, if we want to transform a context or an environment, the first thing we have to do is let go of, we've always done it that way. So we have to be ready to go through a change, because if you hold on to what you're doing, you will not affect the change that you want. So first of all, that's the first thing. And also a mindset, be open and also curious. I say, a childlike curiosity, a curiosity without boundaries, to really be open and receptive to what you might learn or what people want to contribute to the transformation that you're seeking. So that's the first thing. Um, Having gone through several, every time there's a change in an organization, we go to change management,
Mhm.
or that term. And what I find often is that the change um, occur without having had really, I never had the feeling that there was a true probing to see what would we feel fit the organization in when it comes to the transformation. Probably not as deep into the organization as it should be, could have been. So if you want true transformation, you have to go not just from the ivory tower, but deep down into the grassroots and get the
Mhm.
input, and really, and not just gathering input information just to say that you have consulted. Really look at it, what it offers.
Okay, so what are the most specific challenges you face in transforming workplace culture and leadership?
I worked in corporate for a while. Actually, I was in human resources at one point. I've had
Mhm.
many careers in my short life. So when I worked in HR, and sometimes I think I might have had a very naive way to look at the world, like a child, I don't know. But what struck me is that if you want to bring change, if there is no buy-in at the top, it doesn't work. Let's say you were given, I'll give an example. I was given a task um, to move the needle in diversity and employment equity, but I was not at the decision-making level.
Mhm.
So I felt, it felt like Don Quixote against the windmill, because if you do not have a buy-in at the top, you can do all the right thing at your level, and even the one at the grassroots, the workers, the frontliner who want to participate.
Mhm.
And what's important is that there is buy-in at the top and also at the middle management, because they're the one who will be implementing it with, like I said, the troops. So definitely a serious buy-in at the top to ensure that the one who will roll it out for them do it.
Mhm.
So in organizations where that works, you could see the change and the support. And then there's a two-way communication, because it comes from the top to middle management to the troops. And then there's a discussion and goes back up. So that
Mhm.
is when it's effective. When it's more, the top tells you what to do, there's not really a bind at the top, it's just an exercise.
Mm.
If it's just an exercise, people feel it. People are not
Yeah.
engaged, and we don't get the results. So this is what I've observed. I've worked in several organizations, and I saw the two examples I just gave you.
If the top doesn't support it, it's not going anywhere, and it's a gesture and an exercise.
And you just said, if you don't mind, you just said something about the team and diversity, and I have a vivid memory of something that worked well. It was in a team that I worked with, and we had a manager who was quite aware of that. You know, he talked about psychological safety. Anyway, we went away on a retreat, the team, and we did, I'm trying to remember the exact term, an exercise. We had many exercises, but with the Helmet Oscar chart of preference, you know, the full
Mhm.
brain, the brain, the full brain. And that was very telling and had a very good outcome because, you know, there was some dissension, you know, some people were getting on each other's nerve for whatever reason. And when we did the exercise and we each shared our own chart, we saw the strength of the other person.
Mhm.
Realize instead of being something that annoyed us, because we had discussion, well, this person, no wonder, well, she's this person who should be giving all the spreadsheet and the scheduling and all that, because that's what she's good at, that's what she likes. She has this attention to detail and so on. And then what they did is they put everybody's chart, you know, the graph on top of each other. Our team had a full brain, which is rare that one individual has a full brain. I know a
Mhm.
couple, but it's very rare. But our team, we realized we had a full brain and the attitude changed. We knew who's had which superpower. You know, we talk about the
Mhm.
superpower, and it changed the dynamic of the team altogether just by that exercise, by understanding each other and communications. You know, so
Right.
that's an example. If you want change, you really need to know, first of all, what you have and where does the
Mhm.
change really need to be. So it's just an example. Here, it was not about changing people. We realized that there was nothing wrong with the team. The team did not understand each other. So
Mhm.
in an organization, it's like when you're in HR, okay, you talk about cloning personalities and skill set. But as an advisor, one of the things I did, I said, what do you have in your team? What do you want moving forward? What do you want to bring in? Unfortunately, it's not always the mindset of hiring managers. But when you think that way, first of all, it gives you food for thought. Okay, well, what do I have? A lot of times they don't know.
Right.
So if you
If you've never examined it.
yeah. So if you don't know what you have, how do you know which direction to steer your ship? You
Yes.
know,
Yeah, for
I,
sure.
I talk a lot in analogy. I always talk like that. But definitely, and that is a hard question to answer for many. What do
Mhm.
you have? Because I guess it's the comfort zone. We are have always done it this way. This is what I'm used to. This is what I want. Again,
Mhm.
hiring. This is what I want to bring back. But is it really what you need to bring back? And it's not the default mindset. It's not the
No, not at
default
all.
mindset of manager. And that's one thing I've noticed. And something that I really liked, a bit of a challenge, because it's a challenge to even them get them to get there, first of all, because it's difficult. I never thought about it. But it's very rewarding for both parties because when they bring the new person and they bring the new skill set or mindset that they didn't have, they see the difference. And I say, you know, you were right. Because it's not that easy. There was always a bit of a struggle to make them come to the
Mhm.
light and agree in doing things a little differently than they've done before. But
Mhm.
like anything, changes is difficult, you
Yeah.
know.
Like, could you describe a recent situation where you felt that a leader could have benefited from additional training or guidance in culture building, leadership, or both?
A recent example, well, the recent example would have been a few years ago because I've not.
Hmm.
Uh, Well, it's not recent, but that's an example that struck me. That's when I just started to work in HR in a recruitment division, because I was in the diversity and employment equity and inclusion section before. Anyway, we had a process, and it was a targeted process because there was a gap, all right, according to the labor market analysis. And so I had to brief the hiring managers because they had their bias and thought they were going to get a less qualified candidate by doing so. So there was a briefing, awareness that I had to do first, and they bought in reluctantly, but they were gonna go along. And there was one candidate who was from a different culture. I can't remember exactly. All I was going to say is that shaking hands is not something they do. And one of the managers turned around and said, handshake is not very firm. Right. So I didn't say anything at the time because he was speaking under his breath. Make a long story short, at the end, when we scored everybody, that candidate blew out of the water. They really saw his expertise. And the one we talked about, the handshake, and I said, you realize in this culture, this is not something they do. The fact that he touched your hand is big, it's big. And I went, oh. Anyway, the person was not the top candidate. He was not hired. However, because they understood him better, they got to, you filter, the filter was dissipated a bit, a lot, that they called him and said, no, you didn't get a job. However, there is all people you should call to see if you could get a casual position. And eventually, maybe you could get a permanent position. They really felt bad that he didn't score top, and that wasn't something that, anyway, it's just the way the tools were created, and they realized the tool was not the best. So that's okay. Lesson learned there as well. Realize did they need to put weight in this section as much as they did? But I knew there was an impact because I did receive an email telling me, thank you, because they don't know how often they've done that before. So they had an awareness.
Right. So the leader was basically, to use one of the few French terms I actually know, he kind of committed a faux pas that he didn't even know he was committing, and by becoming aware of that, then that helped him be better as a leader. Now, I can
Not
totally
only as a
relate.
leader, he was an ally because he was talking to other managers. Yeah.
Right. So then that affected his relationship with people at the same level as him.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Nice.
like I said, that's an ally because I didn't have to do, because he lived it, and he said, oh, no. So he was doing his thing. So, yeah, this is why it is important.
Right. And I like the fact that you said he lived it, because there's nothing that convinces people better than experience versus ideas. If I say, here's what the science says, or, diversity is good because of this, and you go, yeah, whatever. It's like, well, let's do an activity where we make use of, because experience, both good and bad. I'm not just talking about positive and negative experiences, but experiences that actually move us in the wrong direction. We say, well, we're experienced. Let me give you an HR example. Daniel Kahneman, I think it was in Noise, I think his most recent book. It may have been that one. It may have been Thinking Fast and Slow, but I'm pretty sure it was Noise. He basically said that many HR managers go, well, I'm very experienced. I can spot a great candidate and I have a high level of success. But here's the problem, because Kahneman's all about decisions, right? Behavioral economics. He's all about decision expertise. But one of the weaknesses that goes for humans, period, is we are as a species, tremendously overconfident in our own judgment and skill. And what happens is when you actually look at the how many people, the candidates that any hiring manager hires against what their actual success rate and their self-perceived success rate is always very skewed. Is like they think that most of the people they hire, and it's like turns out they're about at chance or worse. And sometimes people, because they're experts, that is another example of something that can work against them. That is, if they're too overconfident in their expertise, that they're not willing to look at alternatives or track the negative outcomes. That is bad picks. You pick an employee, they turn out to be bad. You can't just track your successes because, that's confirmation bias. So it was interesting that I got off on a tangent here, but um, it was really relevant. It came back to um, nothing helps you learn like experience, but experience isn't always reliable. That is, your experience may be misleading you. Just because you think it's true, that's when you want to go back and also look at numbers that you hadn't expected, both the positive and the negative. That's what it
There's
was.
not, yeah, it's true. And nothing is, I'm thinking in French now. Nothing is, what's the term I'm looking for? Um, when, like we say, medicine is not a perfect, nothing is perfect. We have to also, when we look at results, we have to, not having with in a very narrow way of looking at, we have to broaden our scope to see
Hmm.
what will the influence, not just looking at the result as is,
Hmm.
what were the variables, what were things that might have influenced, what was the environment? Given the
Right.
environment, this is the result we got, instead of just looking at the result. Because
Right. Yeah.
that changes also your perspective when you put the environment, something that looks bad as a result, and you look at the scope of the environment, that actually, given all that they had to deal with, all the challenges, all the variables they had to deal with, what they came up is actually quite good.
Right. Yeah. Context always matters. When I learn something new, I'd be stupid not to adjust it based on what I just learned.
So nothing is absolute. It's not
Nothing.
looking at it. Nothing is absolute. And we're not all operating that way, because people gets ground in their position and their beliefs, and that's
Hmm.
it.
What specific outcomes would you hope to achieve through training in leadership and culture building?
Besides change for the better, positive change, is that all strata of the organization are involved and have a say, and also that the decision makers are open to shift gear or shift direction if need be, if it's brought to their attention by their subordinates, or that something is not working, or they have another option. So the openness in seeing that there might be readjustments
Hmm.
is big, because sometimes you see, this is what we're going to do, and they're forcing it, and although it's not working, that's putting a square peg in a hole. No, we made that decision, we said we were going to do it, and we're going to do it no matter what. So that
Hmm.
that that mentality has to go.
Hmm.
And that every voice can be heard and be appreciated. It doesn't mean that everything will be taken into consideration, that the change will be affected, but at least to give it an honest uh attention,
Hmm.
and not dismissing it without weighing it.
Yeah, I
Sometimes you
like
go
that.
reading, they say, yeah, 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 but they don't really mean it. So that is crucial. And all these, from the top down, because they're making the decisions. And also, what we want is that the whole organization feels like they've had some input, and they are valuable. Because you were talking about, if uh, the subordinate, the frontliners or the middle managers don't agree with it, it might be implemented or not, or half done, and it's going to cause chaos.
Hmm.
It's not, it's gonna make the machine not as effective. It will also create a workplace that where it's let's say when when people don't feel valued or appreciated, there's a ripple effect.
Oh, for
So
sure.
so I don't know if I answered the question, but these are things that I would want to see, because when all this is included, you will end up with a better product, something that's more wholesome, that has a pulse of the organization
Hmm.
and what is needed to create an effective changes, not change for the sake of a change, but an
Mm.
effective change. It's funny you should say that. You talk about purpose, because a lot of my clients, they don't know, they don't want to do what they're doing anymore, but they don't know what they want. And
Yeah.
what's missing is that purpose. So that's what I work on. And once they find
Hmm.
it, it's like eureka. And you talked
Hmm.
about it on that tangent. I can't remember who said that. It was somebody asked this mason, what does he do? He said,
Oh,
"Oh,
yeah.
I'm a mason," and all that. I really like this analogy.
Hmm.
And because, they were building a cathedral that took centuries to build. It was not, most people who
Hmm.
started would never see the end product. And you look at the different perspective, and you ask another one of the workers, and he would answer, "I'm building a cathedral." So his purpose in the team was the production, the creation of the cathedral, whether or not he would see it till the end. But his purpose was that, and that gave him satisfaction. And this is it, when you want, sometimes there's a change, say, well, why are we doing this? Because we're changing it. But if it doesn't make any sense, or we don't see the purpose of the change, it leaves a bad taste, and a sense of, what am I doing here? What's this
Yeah.
for? If people don't understand what their contribution is, or what they're part of the organization, how do they fit into the bigger thing, the bigger scheme of things in the organization? It's kind of demoralization. For example, I think of I don't know if you remember the movie with Charlie Chaplin, Modern Days. He's in the
I just
factory.
heard reference to it recently in a book, actually. Yeah.
And this is what they do. Say, okay, they're not going through the mill. This is what I do. This is what I do. This is what I do. So we don't, that's not what we want to create. We want to get
Right.
away from that. Unfortunately, it is still prevalent in many, many organizations because of the way things are done, the
Yeah.
mentality.
Choose rather than are expected to stay or do extra work or do something at home. Soon as it becomes required or expected that, this is what our best players are doing and we expect you to do it. Soon as it loses the autonomy of choice, then you lose that buy-in and that discretionary effort.
And you're losing the joy of doing it, because somebody does it voluntarily. It's because they want to,
Right. That's it.
it
That's the
is a
point.
totally different, yeah. And oh, I was going to say something, forgot, it'll come back. uh, what was that? Yeah, it was about when we were talking about satisfaction. Yes, it's coming back. We have to understand, in our organization, our human resources, our humans working, the people working in the organization are our biggest asset. So we don't take care of them, it crumbles. So once, and you see it in organization where they really um look after the well-being in every sense of their employee, it doesn't mean that they make the highest pay necessarily, but the work environment is such that they have pleasure going to work, they feel valued, they like what they do. It's not just a job,
Hmm.
and it's not about the money.
Right.
That's
And there's lots of reference to that. It reminds me again of Daniel Pink in Drive, mastery, autonomy, and purpose, because those are the three things his research identified as being what really matters about keeping knowledge workers motivated.
and that deflates the balloon, when
Yeah.
you do this, it's like there's a sense of lack of value, you don't value the fact that I gave this to you, you expect it versus thanking me for doing it by
Hmm.
saying, okay, from this point on, this is what you should be doing, and not acknowledging that they had gone above and beyond and thanking them for doing so without being
Right.
asked. Because a lot of people, when they're happy, they say, oh, it's okay. I like doing this, or oh, I don't mind doing this because, well, they like the person, or oh, it's okay. I don't mind doing this because it's helping the team or it's helping. I don't
Hmm.
mind.
Right. So I'm going to go to the next question, and that is, in your opinion, what are the key skills and competencies that leaders should possess to create a thriving organizational culture?
Thriving organizational culture. Well, first of all, to be a truly an active listener, to really hear what you're being told. You can listen, but not actively listening. You can be one who listens, waiting to respond to the what's being said. So that is a skill. Active listening has quite the currency. People don't realize how important it is, and not just for managers, for people in general. But as a leader, you must have active listening. Do not make assumptions either. So
Hmm.
to be totally receptive to what's being told to you and not assume, to really understand that. Um, Also to see that you don't, and that's from my training in leadership in my military life at one point. You don't know anything, and know that you don't know anything, and it's okay. And find out who in the organization knows about it, knows
Hmm.
something about it, and get and seek their advice. It doesn't matter what level they are. So know who's in your organization, know who knows what in order to accomplish the mission, because you cannot do it all. So uh, a lot of times there's this perception, because I'm the leader, I'm the boss, I know everything. No, you don't. And that's the first thing. It's another competency that they that will really uh, help having a thriving organization. Uh, what was the question again? I'm not answering it.
That's okay. You did answer it. I'll repeat it though if you have more to add. So it's like,
Mhm.
in your opinion, what are the key skills and competencies that leaders should possess to create a thriving organizational culture?
Okay. Well, to understand to really understand what diversity is. Diversity is not just about the different ethnicity and so on. Diversity in your people. It's like I give that analogy when I used to give workshops on diversity. You could be a parent, you have 3 or 4 different children, came from the same parents. You don't necessarily parent them the same way because they are different. Not one is better than the other, but understanding the diversity in your organization and respect it, and also take it in consideration when um they want to approach or bring things forward, to understand who the audience is. I say audience, because you might have passed on a message to your employees, but if you don't understand who you are, who you have in the audience, your message might not be transmitted as accurately as you might think, and that may cause a dissension in the ranks, you know. So that's it sounds something simplistic, but it's something to that has a lot of weight and a lot of importance. We don't realize that, but it is. How often there is misunderstanding because the message was not conveyed as we thought, because we didn't realize We didn't realize who was in the audience or what the perspectives were. So that to be aware of that. And like I say, find out who knows what, because somebody could save you, could save the organization or make it thrive even more. But if you don't ask, if you don't seek and really be open, like I said, be like a vessel, to be really open and not have filters. Be aware of your filters as well, because we have filters. So be aware of that so you don't have unconscious bias as well. So those are, it's not easy, we're human beings, but that is something that definitely they need to be aware of. They don't have to be perfect about everything all the time, but definitely have an understanding of that.
My grandma had 15 kids, and her wisdom about children was very simple. I remember my father saying this. I never heard her say it, but he says they're all different. We need each other, and we need to be aware that not everybody's going to receive stuff the same way. So the next question is, what do you think is the ideal duration for a comprehensive course on transforming workplace culture, leadership, or both?
Wow. Of course, I would thought. Hmm. I definitely, I don't believe in crash courses.
Mm-hmm.
I've been through many of those, or I was instructed to create crash courses. There's not enough time to really absorb and have the application of the knowledge, and it's forgotten very quickly after that. They might
Mm-hmm.
have some nuggets, but that didn't really make the impact that you would want. I don't think so. I've lengthwise, I don't know for lengthwise, but definitely what I see, especially we're talking about adult education. It's my background. You want the learner wants to know why they're learning it. They want to be part of the learning experience. They want immediacy of application, so they have to have the opportunity to apply what they're learning. So it's not, definitely you do not want a course where you just talk at them.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't work. It's a download of information. So whatever course is created, we would not want that kind of a format. So now the
Right.
length. I've seen many, there's many leadership courses. Some are a longer period of time, but not full time. And I've seen leadership courses that go over a year,
Mm-hmm.
uh, part-time, a few hours a week or so on. Um, that's a good question. I've never been asked that, and I'm trying to think what would be if I were to have one. Definitely, it might not be the ideal one,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely I would like to have at least a week and away from the workplace so they can focus on what they're learning
Mm-hmm.
and also give it activities where they can um, put in practice what they're learning. So whatever they're learning, it's not just the information, take your notes and download. It's to have a simulation or the opportunity to apply what was learned.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking about a week, but an intensive week.
It was just a PR expense, not a human resources development activity. Because if nobody developed, if nobody grew, then that's all it was. Is it was
And you
taking
have to
taking care of
apply.
some PR thing.
Exactly. It's just a check mark and the application. And I say 12 months, exactly, because they're in the field, they apply it in the workplace back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
What happens and what I've experienced, and that is why I'm going, what's the ideal time? Because I've seen different length, is that also organizations are not always willing to invest the time to let the employees get the training and really have wholesome training where they can apply it. So when they come back, they are transformed and they can apply it. It's not just a matter of downloading information, because I have binders that, I realize, oh my gosh, I forgot I took this course. What was in that? And it's the lack of willingness to invest, because often it's time away from the workplace. How long can we afford to have this person go?
Right.
That is one of the obstacles.
Well, and that to me is an investment a company either chooses to make because it always has, or
Mhm.
virtually always, according to the research, probably always has a really good ROI as long as the training, simply put, doesn't suck and does actually teach people how to use it, and that they do get that feedback. And that
Exactly,
again, we get the buy-in we're talking about.
exactly. And then it's like the ROI, what are they going to bring back? What are they going to apply? It's not just the information consumption.
Yeah,
There is an
yeah.
application to it. And that's the big element, the application to it of
Yeah.
what's learned. And that's what makes the difference. And that's what makes it contributes to the transformation, because they come back and they apply the skills and the tools that they've learned.
Hmm.
If
Yeah.
the organization is serious about that, they will let the employee come back and do so.
It was actually Adam Grant's most recent book. He's an organizational psychologist, and he talked about, on average, the data is showing it usually takes 6 or 7 times that something is applied before people are actually reach any reasonable level of competence. What factors would influence your decision about the ideal duration? So we already covered there may be no ideal, but whatever duration, what sort of factors would either contract or expand what you would consider the appropriate amount of time?
Well, if I were to create a program, for example, I would ask, what is the outcome you want to the client? If they want
For sure.
an organization. Okay, so what do you want to accomplish? Okay. And how soon do you want it? So yeah, first of all, to know what they want. Who do they want to have that training also? Is it a top manager, middle manager? Like who is it? Who are going to be taking the training? So that's one thing.
Mhm.
What else would I think about? Definitely, what is the outcome? And also, what challenges they face that they'd like to have resolved or overcome in the organization. So, like to have a layout of the landscape, so that would be factors that would determine, okay, well, in order to achieve this, I would need that much time.
Hmm.
It's not a
Hmm.
number, because you can pull a number or say, okay, I'll offer a course on a week, a month, 3 months, but is it what really is needed for someone? You need to know what you need to cover, and then from that, that's anyway, for me, it would help me figure out how much time I would need to deliver a product that it will give them result, not just a product just for the sake of here's another course or training session.
Right.
So what
Right.
is the outcome desired? What are the challenges, obstacle, whatever you want to resolve, or where you want the transformation done? And then I have a better idea on what the weight of what needs to be done. And from that, figure out the time necessary to have those outcomes.
They are my priority, even if they're not the ones paying for it. And if I can't deliver that to them, then I won't say I can, and I'd rather turn down that business than fake it, because
Yeah,
big picture, that's not going to be any good for my business reputation, and it didn't deliver what I promised, and I want to deliver what I promise.
because they fall short. You don't want that, because the expectation is not met. like it's not only your reputation, but the product, the person who's supposed to benefit from it, they're shortchanged. So that's a waste of that
Right.
time. Eh?
Yeah. It's very valuable, but nobody ever wants to hear that they're not agreed with.
No,
But that's part of the
that's the thing.
psychological safety, right?
Well, we need that. We need that, but it's true. People don't always want to hear the truth. And when
Yeah.
you talk about, I'm a bit like that. It's, where did you get that? What's your source? People tell me this
Hmm.
and believe like we say in French, dur comme le fer. I said, where did you get that? Well, I said, no. What's your source? And that annoys people when they do that. So I say,
Well, but
okay, I'm willing to know, but then what's the source so I can go look it up myself? Thank you. But no, that's interesting. That's interesting.
it's something
Debunk the
every,
problem.
yeah, it's something every teacher should know. Um, I'll give you the sort of the upshot of it is we're all of those. But in
Mm,
terms of our belief that one helps us learn best, it's more accurate to say
it's a
one is the
preference.
one we prefer to learn. And that's fundamentally different because it doesn't lead to objectively better results. So I'll send you the information so you can
So
look
we
at it
should say that
yourself.
because when we talk about learning style, I never perceived it. To me, it means I saw it more as a preference than ability to.
Right,
That's been my perspective. It
right,
reminds me of the full brain.
right,
Uh, you're good at it, but it's also a preference. This is what, because you prefer it, you're really good at doing this because this is something you like, your preference. But
right.
on the same thing, it's that you're talking about disagreement. But one of the things I used to say, disagreement is not a bad thing to disagree on
No,
something because it opens a conversation and then things, solution can emerge from that, different perspective. If we are open to hearing the difference of opinions.
hmm,
So I say it's not necessarily confrontational. It's not a bad thing to disagree because you disagree, you bring another perspective,
right.
and if
And
people can accept that, it
yeah, and
doesn't
that's
have
a
to appeal.
skill.
Yeah,
Again, that's the number one predictor of the best performing teams above all other things is psychological safety, which includes the safety to disagree and the safety to say, I don't know,
yeah.
especially as a leader.
No, it's true because that's one of the things I say. It's okay as a leader to not know everything, and it's okay.
It's I think it's more than okay. I think it's a must. Because if you're delusional to the point where you think that nobody can teach you anything, that's a very dangerous position. Which formats or delivery methods would be most effective for the training we've talked about? So what you've sort of defined as training, which formats or delivery methods would be most effective?
I would see a mix of methods, not just one method. Uh, well, definitely giving some information. Discussion scenarios, discussion scenarios to apply what is being taught. Also, depending on what it is, an assignment to I don't know, an assignment that's linked to what is learned as well. So there is the
Hmm.
immediacy of working in a group in a class to learn and to apply what was taught, and also an individual assignment linked to that where uh, the thought process of each person is challenged. It's coming from the group setting to the individual setting as well. So
Hmm.
talking about leadership, they've had the consensus and discussion, and then also the solo handling of whatever situation is. So there was
Hmm.
that. I believe in different methods
Hmm.
uh, because, well, to break the monotony and also to challenge the brain,
Hmm.
to keep it at a peak, because nothing in real life, nothing is perfect. You never know what's going to be thrown at you. So in order to change gear, right? To change gear. Okay, so I talked about you have information, application of the information thought, and then food for thought afterwards. An assignment could be an overnight assignment or over a period of time, depending what it is. It could be extended over, I don't know, a week, a month, depending on what it is. And also a discussion where I like to do this, where I would have different topics that were taught or discussed at one point and have an ad lib, draw from a hat and the person dealing with the situation or the problem or opinion, just to have them delve into what we want them to learn and also where we want the transformation to happen.
Okay.
So those are the things I would think put into consideration. It's not learn and regurgitate. It's really
Oh no. For sure.
applying it and challenging them. Also giving them a challenge, not just show that you've learned, but also give them the opportunity to face a challenge and resolution. Challenge and resolution. Yeah.
Okay, I like that. Here's what we learned. Okay, if we pull it from a hat, here's a scenario related to this thing we learned. What should you do? Go. And again, as individuals and groups. Is that the kind of thing you mean?
Or as a person, an individual, and say, what would you do in this situation? It could be a mix of
Right.
things in the hat, not necessarily all the same thing, because the
Right.
element of surprise. So it could be a medley of situation of things or tasks,
Right.
or it could be, okay, for example, what's your opinion? This is happening. What's your opinion? Talk about it. What's
Right.
your opinion
Yeah.
on this? So it's a mix of things, not just one, for example, you would have a question on, it's a series of questions. No, not necessarily a series of questions. It could be question, it could be opinion, it could be a debate this point. This is what your employee is bringing to you. You
Right.
disagree. How would you convey? So a medley,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it will all be linked to what's been
Been taught.
acquired
Yeah.
over the training.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
So give somebody a more realistic scenario and say, what would you do in this situation given these variables? Multiple
exactly.
variables. Yeah.
This is
Nice.
this is what I was getting at. Exactly.
Great. I'm glad. That means I understood. Okay. What criteria would determine the value of the training?
Oh, so the end result, what criteria? Well, first thing is definitely, I would say, to have a totally different perspective on how to go about it, how to be leading, You should come out of the training thinking a different way. There should be an awareness, like a eureka, and definitely a shift to changing how you're going to operate from this point on. If after the training you're still uh, thinking, or there's no shift in how you think on how to proceed, well, there's a problem, because once you go through that training, there's a transformation at the end. So whomever you were at the beginning should not be exactly the same at the end of the training.
Nice.
So
I like
there's
that.
no difference. Yeah,
Yeah. If there's no transformation, it hasn't been successful. It hasn't had value. Okay.
no,
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree with that. It's sort of like, yeah, what is the point of the training if you come out saying either that was dumb or there's nothing in there? It's like, well, no company could or should justify paying for something that isn't producing some kind of desired result. And that result is changes which will lead to changes and ideally more profit or more success in the company, whether it's leadership or profit, but good leadership is going to lead to long-term profit.
For example, at the end, like I've gone to courses myself as an attendee or delivered training, and at the end we say, "Oh my gosh, this was such great nugget. We're going back to work. I'm going to do this way now. Oh, I'm going to try that, or I will change this because it all packed up and bing, like I'm saying, everything's been there, and then the output. This is it. At the end of the training, you should have some kind of vision in how you're going to move forward from this point on.
Nice.
If you don't have that at the end of the training, well, something didn't click. There's something missing. You should.
Right.
The result is that you want to apply and you see how you can implement that back in a workplace. That's
Right.
an indicator.
To use the words of Jim Collins, vision. Can you share your thoughts on the frequency of coaching sessions, weekly, twice a week, whatever frequency, that would align best with your needs or those of your clients?
Well, from my experience, the frequency, there's many factors, is a good thing. Some coach, do it once a month, depending on what they're working on, once a week. But something to take in consideration, what are you working on? Because weekly, there might not be enough time to, when they come back, that they have absorbed and have a result to. They might need more time to work on something. So ideally, maybe once every 2 weeks or once a month. It all depends. And to me, it would I would decide the frequency depending on what is not just the end result, but the work involved throughout the coaching relationship. So I know one professional, he's also a coach, but he only meets his client once a month, but that's because of what they're doing. They need all this time to marinate and apply and so on, so that when they come back, there's something to move forward with, So it depends. Maybe, and we're talking about leadership, another thing, because knowing in the corporate world when I worked, especially top executive, the time is at premium. So weekly might not be feasible with their demands. So maybe once a month.
24 hours. You can't really demand that.
Yeah, this is what I said when I said it. It all depends what we're working on, and then also put it in a context of talent, especially if we talk about the top executive. I know I've worked with them, and I know what their work life is and the different times they have to pivot. So they might have all intentions, but like you said, the opportunity to apply something has not come organically for them within a week. So that's why I said what I said.
Which types of support or mentorship outside the scheduled training would be most beneficial?
It could be other colleagues or somebody in the field, but not necessarily in the same organization. I was speaking from experience because it happened to me, and I ended up looking, and I got mentors from fields that were outside of my organization, in totally different fields, because of the expertise they could bring to me that I needed. So it's to go outside, to step out of the known and seek, and it's good for the client because if we want a transformation, it makes you down and say, okay, so what is it that I need to beef up, and who can give me that?
Ideally, so we're talking fairy tales and rainbows and unicorns. How often should that sort of support outside the scheduled work, the officially scheduled work, how often should that type of support be available?
And it's just like I've been involved in different mentoring programs.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, let's say a regular one once a month, and with the possibility for a quick call if need be ad hoc, but a committed connection once a month for sure, and to come prepared for the session. So the time is used fruitfully.
Mm-hmm.
And if something comes up and they need to bounce the idea off, that there's a possibility that they can reach the mentor for a
Mm-hmm.
quick, not for a full session, but just for a quick one to pass whatever they need to talk to by them quickly. So
Right.
they're not
Okay.
to hang for a month. They need a quick answer, have that possibility. So are we talking? I've got so
So
many things.
here's the way I want you to define culture. Whatever organizational or workplace culture means to you is the
Mhm.
definition I mean, because I want your answer, not
We're
demand
talking about
characteristic
we're
answer
talking
provided.
about corporate culture, the culture of the organization.
The culture of the organization
Okay.
as that term is meaningful to you, right? So your definition of organizational
Oh,
culture,
okay. So what does that mean? Okay, that's clearer.
right?
Getting tired, that's getting late. My brain is slowing down a bit. All right. So the corporate culture, where you talked about psychological safety, how 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 are the employees treated? Also, is there room for growth? Are people, sometimes people are in positions, but besides that, they have skills that they cannot use in their
Mm-hmm.
position. So is there possibility for growth or um, use those skills, although it's not needed in the functions that they have? So is the organization open to see all that their staff has to offer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's what I look at. You're not just like in a pigeonhole, you're a person. What do you have to offer the organization? And does the organization offer the opportunity for the employee to flourish and use all that they
Mm-hmm.
have to offer? So that's another thing. Possibility for growth. Possibility, how open is the organization to hear from their employees, whether it's through scheduled meeting, town halls, or whatever, or is there an open door policy if someone has something they want to share with the leadership that it would be beneficial versus having to wait for the next big meeting? How
Mm-hmm.
how yeah, if there's an openness to open communication when the opportunity arises versus when it's scheduled.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Uh, Also, the is the organization open to having employees to experience let's say cross training in another field or division for like job shadowing or an assignment? How is the company open to that? Are they not willing to? Because we know some companies don't want people to go on assignment to develop new skills. You have this job, we hired you for this. This is why you stay. So is this company like that, or sees the value in their their employees and have them reach their full potential and being beneficial to the company when you have an employee that thrives?
What pricing model appeals to you most as that organizational decision maker?
Because I did have decision making at my level for the portfolio. I was responsible. I was given a budget and I was
Hmm.
responsible for it.
There you go.
So,
Perfect.
well, I had to be clear on what deliverables I wanted, first of all. Okay, so what
Hmm.
is it? What are the deliverables? What are the timelines? Now, but the pricing model, it's like, okay, if I have a price, itemize it. What is it doing? Is there a workshop? There's workbook. There's
Some companies have said that they want it charged all at once because of the way their accounting works. You know, they want to know
oh,
what is one upfront price? Is it a subscription? Is it as needed per hour? That kind of thing. So I'm talking about the way the company pays for and is charged for. And I've heard everything all over the map in terms
well,
of it's
yeah,
like,
that's a trick. This is where it's tricky because then you say, okay, and that, given that, I know, for example, if I wanted some training, I had to make sure that it was delivered by a certain time so it could be paid by the end of fiscal.
right,
So the end of fiscal was March 31st, so we didn't want to start a course the week of the 27th because it has to be delivered and then we're invoiced, right? And then
yeah,
so it's the time, the consideration is because I remember we had to delay certain training because of when completion of that training would take
right,
place. Because it was part of it's the package, right? It's this is what we're offering in so many weeks, and it's paid by the first installment, this and that, it would be as the sessions or whatever the deliverable was delivered. So that is something we had to coordinate.
right.
That's been my experience of where because of where I worked before because of the accounting.
Right. Okay.
So
And this is the question that I'm asking in that sense. So
yeah.
as that person making the decision, what would you sort of prefer and why?
Mhm.
What would be sort of most beneficial for you and your company?
I've had a mix. For example, because I had portfolio for language training. So it was for the whole year, but we didn't pay the year upfront. We just paid, we would be, the way it was is like we got invoiced, we paid after the service was rendered. We never paid
Right.
before. Um, or another way to do it is pay per deliverables. Okay, so depending on
Right.
this components, okay, this components, okay, so when this is complete, get invoice, this deliverable is done, and this is when I pay.
Who do you know who could benefit from or be willing to be interviewed by me about these topics? That is, do you know anybody else who would be interested or benefit from doing this interview with me?
Mm, I've answered right off the top of my head right now.
No, no, you can, if you have somebody, great. If you don't, take time. And even if your answer, and this is super important, if your answer is no, this was a terrible experience, why would I
Yeah.
send anybody to you? I would hate to hear it, but I would want to hear it.
No, it's
Right.
just like,
So yeah,
sometimes we are asked a question and the obvious answer we cannot remember. I have somebody I know there is, I cannot think of who it is. So if you ask me right
no
now,
problem.
I can't tell you, but I know I do.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
do.
Who do you know who is looking for guests about these topics? That is somebody who might want me as a guest on their podcast or some similar format.
Hmm. I might be interested when I launch my podcast.
Sure, great.
Let me see. Who? I know there is something. I'm sorry. It's just like it's almost 11 and I've been up since 5 this morning. I'm losing it now.
No problem. You need to get to
But I
bed
know I'm
soon,
trying to think. I want somebody that is aligned with what you do. So
for
given
sure. Yeah.
but I'm sure there is. I just cannot remember right now.
No problem.
And
And
I'll be communicating with you on LinkedIn and ask you for more questions, like to orient me better. But no, I will.
how could I make this interview better?
How can you make this interview better? Oh, I don't know. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I've been on interviews maybe 5 times before, but what I like is that you know, you prepare the questions, and I didn't know what it was. So I think I kind of like that format versus necessarily having scripted questions and I'm ready to answer, because sometimes by the time you get there, that's not what you want to say. How could you make it
Mhm.
better? I don't know. It was a little long, but no, it was pleasant. It was a pleasant experience. So I cannot think of
Thank
anything
you.
except shortening. If I do think of something, I will
Please
send
do.
you a message. I will get back to you.
Yanick, it was a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye, thanks.
Bye, Yanick.
Okay, bye, Tim.